So when the idea of the United States buying Greenland popped back into the news, it probably sounded pretty strange, right? Like a complete one-off. But this is way more than just a real estate transaction. It's a really complex story that gets into history, military strategy, and most importantly, a nation's fight for its own future. Okay, let's get into it.
This recent statement really put the issue front and center again, framing it as all about national security. But here's the thing. Even though the language sounds like a business deal, the proposal itself taps into over 150 years of American strategic interest in the Arctic. So no, this is not a new idea. Not at all. It's actually a recurring theme in U.S. foreign policy. And, well, the response from Greenland? It was just as fast and just as clear. This statement from Premier Ajide really sets up the fundamental conflict here. You've got this geopolitical desire from a superpower on one side and a nation's firm declaration of its own sovereignty on the other. That's the core tension we're going to unpack.
To really get what's happening right now, we have to look back. The U.S. interest in Greenland didn't just start in 2019. It's a long story, a story of strategic calculation that goes all the way back to the 19th century. You know, what's so fascinating here is the pattern. It starts way, way back in 1867. That's right after the U.S. bought Alaska. Secretary of State Seward was already looking at Greenland. Then, in 1910, there was even some talk of trading parts of the Philippines for it. Fast forward to after World War II, when Greenland's strategic value was suddenly crystal clear, and the U.S. secretly offered Denmark $100 million in gold. The way they talk about it changes over the years, from expansionism to Cold War strategy to a real estate deal, but the core idea, the goal, has stayed remarkably consistent. So why this constant interest? Well, you know the old saying, location, location, location. As the Arctic continues to open up because of climate change and as global competition heats up, Greenland's position on the map is more critical than it has ever been. A huge piece of this puzzle is something military planners call the GIUK gap. That stands for Greenland, Iceland, and the UK. Think of it as a massive naval choke point. If you control this gap, you control who can move submarines and warships from the high Arctic down into the Atlantic. For NATO, and for the defense of North America, it's considered absolutely vital. Basically, whoever holds the keys to this gap has a major advantage in the North Atlantic.
And here are the specifics. You've got Pawtucket Space Base, which is the U.S. military's northernmost outpost. It's absolutely essential for early warning missile defense. From Greenland, the U.S. can keep an eye on Russian and Chinese movements. And think about this. As the ice melts, new shipping routes are opening up, like the Polar Silk Road. Controlling Greenland could mean influencing all that future trade. It is, for all intents and purposes, a massive strategic buffer. But its value isn't just about military bases. It's also about what's buried underneath all that ice.
So beyond all the military talk, there's the economic angle. You hear a lot about Greenland being this treasure trove of natural resources. But the reality on the ground? It's a lot more complicated than that.
First, let's just talk about the sheer scale of the place. We're talking about over 2 million square kilometers. To put that in perspective, Greenland is larger than Mexico. It is an immense piece of land.
But here's the catch, and it is a big one. About 85% of that huge land area is buried under an ice sheet that's, on average, a mile thick. That makes getting to anything underneath it incredibly difficult and unbelievably expensive.
And yet, the potential is just staggering. Estimates point to something like 50 billion barrels of offshore oil and gas. And that's not even mentioning some of the largest deposits of rare earth minerals outside of China. You know, the minerals that are absolutely crucial for all our modern technology. So with all that potential wealth on paper, you'd think Greenland would be booming. But the reality is its economy is heavily dependent on an annual subsidy of 5.6 billion kroner from Denmark. This financial truth is a key piece of the puzzle in any talk about its future, whether that's full independence or something else entirely. So you end up with this massive contrast. On the one hand, you have these world-class mineral and energy resources, but on the other hand, there's a near total lack of infrastructure. I mean, there are no roads between towns. And on top of that, you have strong local environmental movements that have successfully stopped major mining projects. So unlocking all that potential means overcoming some truly enormous practical and political hurdles. Which brings us to what is arguably the most important element in this entire story, one that often gets lost in all the talk about geopolitics and resources: the people of Greenland and their legal right to choose their own path. This right here, this is the key document, the Self-Government Act of 2009 is not ambiguous at all. It explicitly says that the decision on Greenland's independence shall be made by the Greenlandic people. That's not a suggestion. It's the law. It lays out a clear, legal, democratic process for full sovereignty, which would have to be approved by a referendum in Greenland itself.
So what about that whole real estate deal idea? Well, the actual laws on the ground make that pretty complicated. If you want to buy property in Greenland, you generally have to be a Danish citizen, or you have to have lived and paid taxes there for at least 2 years. Everyone else, they have to apply for a special exemption directly from the Greenlandic government. It's not nearly as simple as just writing a check.
And this is what's really at stake. We're not talking about an empty expanse of ice. It's a country with cities like Nuuk, a vibrant culture, a unique language, and a population of nearly 60,000 people who, by law and by international standards, hold the right to determine their own destiny.
So we're left with this fundamental question. As superpowers circle and the strategic value of the Arctic just keeps growing, a nation with a small population but a vast territory finds itself at a crossroads. Will its future be defined by the strategic needs of others or by its own long struggle for independence? The answer to that is going to shape not just the future of Greenland, but the future of the entire Arctic.